Hello and welcome to Gemcast.
The opportunity in investing in emerging markets is unmatched.
Do you think there's a sort of Western view of just lumping EM in together then?
Absolutely. You cannot just do a desktop approach. You need to be there on the ground. The problem that we are solving every day is how to bring capital from the global north into investable instruments into the global south. And that dollar creates the water treatment system, new healthcare centers built. You see unimaginable positive impact. And that's just amazing.
Patience, being present, and that kind of contrarian angle. What from your experience taught you why those three principles were so important?
I think
Hello and welcome to Gemcast, the podcast from Gemcorp Capital, where we explore the key themes across emerging and private markets. Today I'm joined by Atanas Bostandjiev.
Hello, Tom. Great to be here.
Good to have you here. Atanas is the CEO and founder of Gem Corp. And today we're talking about principles and the importance of the core principles for Gem Corp into how we invest, how we manage money, and how we think about running our organization. So before we get into that, Atanas, tell me a little bit about why you founded Gem Corp, how you got here, your passion for emerging markets.
How did we get here? Well, I come from emerging markets. I come from Bulgaria. I was born there. I spent my youth in Bulgaria during communism. And right after the wall fell in 1989, I was fortunate enough actually to go and study in the States. One of the first of my generation, basically, to be able to leave Bulgaria after communism. And that, needless to say, was an amazing eye-opener. Right, to go study in the US, get into college, graduate from college, and then end up on the trading floor of Merrill Lynch in 97, early 98. I was fortunate enough then, right before the financial crisis, to get a very interesting proposal from Goldman to join them as a partner and co-run the European institutional sales business and the emerging market business, which was an amazing experience in an amazing firm where I learned a lot. I developed new skills. I was fortunate enough to taste of the culture, which then led me to my next step and yet another very interesting jump in my career. I had the opportunity to become the CEO of ADGM Capital International in London, which was to build the whole capital markets operation outside of Russia for the bank. And that ultimately gave me experience to understand how a bank runs from back to front, dealing with the regulators. From 2011 to 2013, we developed a very successful operation, opening up offices in New York, in Dubai, Hong Kong, Singapore, Africa, Angola, Bulgaria, and building a very, very successful business within a very short period of time. Ultimately gave me the courage that, look, if we could build a business in a bank that had no franchise value outside of its home country, that means that building a business requires having the right people. And if you have the right people sharing the same vision, the same strategy that you put in place, then things should be possible to do. And that gave me the courage to come up with the business plan for Gem Corp. I create a Western-based, London-based, headquartered investment firm with very select and specialized expertise in investing in emerging markets. And that's how the idea of Gem Corp came about. And we were fortunate enough to start our journey in September 2014. And now here we are 10 years later. And counting, I'm very proud of what we've achieved. But most importantly, I'm super proud and excited about what lies ahead of us. The opportunity in investing in emerging markets, supporting these vibrant economies, vibrant populations, these young populations is unmatched in what investors could find in developed markets.
Okay. So there's a lot to take in there. I think what was interesting about your answer is kind of how many of the lessons you've taken from the places you've been and how you kind of brought that into Gem Corp. So thinking about that, the principles that we kind of talk about are around patience, being present, and that kind of contrarian angle. So what from your kind of experience taught you why those three principles were so important?
I think all of these principles that you mentioned are important, and I think where we differentiate ourselves as an investor specializing in an asset class which is growing emerging markets, and is that actually we don't look at emerging market as an asset class, but we look at each country as its own country and investment destination, its own country with its own populations, its own habits, culture, legal systems, financial systems. And this is extremely important for investors to understand, that when you make an investment decision for a particular deal in a particular country, you cannot just do a desktop approach from the London or New York boardroom or behind the Bloomberg screens. You need to be there on the ground. You need to understand the culture of the counterpart, your partner on the other side that you.
Do you think there's a sort of Western view of just lumping EM in together then and just sort of treating it like a blob and not understanding it, not appreciating the diversity, the challenges?
Absolutely. And you've seen this happening over the last 10, 15 years. You've got a whole trend of Western investors investing in emerging markets by just buying indices, right? And that kind of probably is one way to do it, but we would argue that this is a suboptimal way to do it because that doesn't really give you any flavor, and your decision making is based on very dry parameters as opposed to really delving in and understanding the culture. And emerging markets is not one place. It's not a homogeneous type of destination. Each country is very specific, and I think where we make a difference is because we understand emerging markets. We come from there, right? We know what it is to speak the local language, to understand the local culture, to understand the mentality of your partner on the ground, and that's what we built, right? So you need to be humble. You need to be able to listen. And to understand what your counterpart, your partner, is looking for. And you need to also be able to understand how you could put an investment solution, having the tools that you have in order to fulfill that type of demand or problem that the local investors have. And let's be very honest. It's a big problem that they have, and that's the problem we're solving here every day. And that problem is of the huge capital deficit that there is in those countries, right? If you look at the population average age in Africa or in the global south, these are very, very young populations, average age of 20 or so years. And by definition, there's no savings in those countries. And if there is no savings, where is the capital going to come from for those countries to invest in their own economies, in infrastructure, in energy, in water, education? And that is literally our job here. The problem that we are solving every day is how to bring capital from the global north, from the savers in the north, and translate it into investable instruments into the global south.
So I think throughout then your whole career investing in EM, I'm guessing you've had to be a contrarian because, frankly, that interest in EM has probably waxed and waned since you started your career, right? And certainly in the last 10 years, since you founded Gem Corp, it's been a period, it's been quite challenging to be an EM investor, right?
Yes, it has been quite challenging in the sense that it's not the investment destination that creates the risk, because we could argue that the risk reward in investing in emerging market is in most of the times probably safer or better when you look at opportunities in private credit in the developed market.
Yeah, okay.
Simply because of the demand and supply of capital. In the West, you have plenty of supply of capital, hence the challenges, the pricing of risk is to a certain extent distorted by the availability of too much capital, sometimes chasing very few investment opportunities.
Yeah.
In the emerging markets, there is a huge deficit, as we said earlier, of capital. Hence, our challenge has been how to get more capital flowing and investing in such opportunities, and getting that amazing risk reward that you could structure, simply because there is no enough capital for the available investment opportunities. So yes, you could say that we take a contrarian view. It depends on from what perspective.
Yeah, I know. I like that. Yeah, just kind of flip it on its head.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thinking about sort of patience and presence, I kind of sometimes think of those principles as being quite close together. And I think of them specifically in our context being very close to partnership. And one of the things that I've been struck by at Gemcorp is the degree of partnership we have with our borrowers. So I wonder if you could talk about any examples that you've got where, where these principles have been in action, where we've shown that degree of patience and presence in holding our hand at some point of time when maybe others were running, and I think in EM that can often be particularly important, and where that's maybe led to a partnership, a relationship with a borrower that's particularly deep and lasting, which is obviously very relevant in private credit, where we're doing repeat deals. We want to have that relationship.
Absolutely. And I think this is one of the most important principles that I believe in, and we stand behind as a firm of Gem Corp, is that of partnership, of relationships, of long-term relationships with our clients. And we do not look at our investments as transactional kind of opportunities. We look at them as long-term investments, patient investments, partnerships. That's how you really build long-term value, both for our investors and for our clients, the borrowers that need the capital. And ultimately, that's how you create the results that actually is a win-win situation for both sides. And we have many examples like this to give. For example, with the government of Angola, we've started investing and funding the government back in 2008-9, already from our previous careers. And we started funding the government from day one when we created Gem Corp, and we have invested there billions of dollars. And during this journey, one transaction has led to another, a third, to the extent where we have become a reliable partner for the government in order to bring funding, but not only bring the funding, but also help advise and execute strategic projects for the government, be it in the healthcare sector, be it in the energy sector, be it in the water infrastructure sector, because that's what is needed on the ground. And when you start with a relationship, then, and you listen, and you understand what the problem is, and then you have the technical capability to solve that problem, that's what builds the investment case and the relationship. And you have to be patient with this, but ultimately the result is beautiful, because when we look at the billions of dollars that we have deployed in that country, these dollars would not be there without us bringing them there. Meaning that if we didn't put the work, if we didn't put the structuring, our minds to work on those transactions, those investments would not have happened. And the impact that this brings to the local society, in the job creation, in having water delivered to thousands of homes, new healthcare centers built, it's unmeasurable. And
Is that what makes you proud?
it makes me very proud, and I really would like to invite our investors and our audience literally to have the opportunity to really experience what that feeling is, because it's not only about financial results,
Yeah.
but actually seeing that because of the scarcity of capital
Yeah.
that there is in those countries, that when you bring that dollar and that dollar creates the water treatment system, you see unimaginable positive impact, and that's just amazing. That's unmeasurable in financial quantity, right?
Yeah.
And we have many cases like this where we have been actually funding companies from very nascent stage of the operations in emerging markets, be it in the telecom sector, be it in the tech sector, be it in the agricultural space, where we are not only bringing the funding required for them to grow and operate, but we've also brought knowledge and know-how. We've helped them improve their governance structure so that we can help them get and rise to the standards of Western operations and companies. And we have seen many cases where after a number of successful years of us sponsoring a company, they've been able to stand on their own feet and access the capital markets themselves. And again, this type of impact is so fulfilling on one side, and on the other side, the opportunity is so big, because when you look at, from Indonesia to Saudi Arabia, to Middle East, to Africa, to Latin American countries, Eastern European countries, you have very capable, young, hungry, ambitious entrepreneurs with very brave ideas, with very ambitious ideas. And sometimes all they need is that little help and someone to believe in them. And that's very personal to me, because when I exited or had the chance to leave Bulgaria at the age of 16 and go to the West, go to the US, I was very fortunate that people believed in me and gave me the chance. And I see this type of spirit, this type of capability in emerging market kids and entrepreneurs, that if you give them that little chance, wonders can happen.
Does it make you a better investor because you're from the emerging markets?
I don't know what the definition of a better investor is, but results, show for themselves.
They're pretty good. Yeah, sure. I mean, better in the sense that, I guess, look, I'm not from the emerging markets, but my feeling is that the deep understanding, the knowledge, the empathy that you can bring because you've lived it means that when you're going to do those deals, and I hear you talking about it, there's something you can bring that somebody like me can't, sat in London, or somebody sat in New York, or somebody, sat in Munich or Paris. They kind of don't have that.
I think we become more capable investors being from emerging markets, in the sense that we are able to get that informational and cultural edge, and understand nuances that your typical Western investors wouldn't be able to understand. So being local, speaking the local language, having years of experience operating in a certain country, having the relationships, that brings you a very special edge that we, on the other side, can package and contribute to our investors, pension plans, the insurance companies, the LPs that actually would like to get exposure. That's why I would argue that the index investing in EM is almost a very superficial type of investing. And I think the real way to get exposure to emerging markets is literally get in touch with the local reality. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, almost on a deal-by-deal basis to really understand it, which is what lends itself to the private credit work that we do. Well, look, I think let's look forward. So you talked about opportunity a little bit. One thing that strikes me is how relevant some of those principles are still today. Unfortunately, you probably still have to be a contrarian to be super passionate about EM, or maybe that's changing a little bit. But, where do we see opportunities? So looking forward the next decade, where's Gemcorp going to be present over the next decade? What are you most excited about?
I'm mostly excited about the prospect of growth that we have, because the countries that we invest in, they're the fastest growing countries on the planet, right? If you look at from Indonesia to Saudi Arabia to African countries, that's where the growth is. That's where the demographics are. You have very young populations. And we have an unprecedented kind of opportunity in front of us to literally bring technology, bring capital, bring expertise, and work with local governments, with local corporates to really continue provide them those critical financial, capital, industrial, technological solutions that they need in order to power their economies. And I think if you just focus on 4 industrial pillars, starting from energy, both renewable and conventional, because without energy there is no industrial growth. You focus on water, water infrastructure, water treatment. You focus on healthcare, and healthcare including health tech, because in emerging markets you will never be able to replicate the hardware hospital infrastructure that we built here in the West and apply to the same population metric in Africa, for example. So you will need to bring special technology in order to leapfrog the processes and the developments that we've had here in the West. And then you focus on education and educational technologies, right? Only on those 4 areas, there's tens of billions of dollars that can be deployed in critical industries, critical investments that are going to be transformational for those economies. Education, healthcare, water, energy. Right? I mean, and when you look at the scale of the opportunity, I mean, I find it difficult not to be super excited. And I think for us, literally, we would like to welcome people to join us here in the firm that have the same vision, that feel that they have something to contribute, both financially, but most importantly, contribute and make a real impact in the investment destinations where we do. And I really believe that we have a great journey ahead of us.
And how do we, we talk about unleashing the potential, and you talked about those exciting pillars and the transformation. How do we do that? What's the big challenge that we're facing, and how are we going to unlock it?
I think first, to unleash the potential, you need to believe in it. You need to be passionate about it.
Well, you definitely have that. There's no problem there.
I have that because I come from there. I've seen it. Not only me, but the majority of our team comes from emerging markets. And ultimately, we need to educate our investors that there is very good investment opportunities out there across the sectors that I mentioned. And these are uncrowded investment opportunities. So if people understand, our investors understand that actually you could structure very good risk reward, and at the same time of getting good financial results, actually you have an opportunity to make huge impact. That's how we unleash the potential of emerging markets. So we effectively offer that unique opportunity of being on the crossroad between Western investors, because at the end of the day, we operate out of US, London, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia. So we interface, we understand what the criteria of Western investors is. And on the other side, we sit on the other crossroad of being local in all those emerging markets. And I think we offer an unprecedented, unique opportunity for capital to flow through. And that's the first starting point, right? Because without capital, without technology, without the knowledge, without the structuring capability, these economies will struggle, right? That's why we have such a huge role to play.
Absolutely fascinating. Well, Atanas, I think you've given us a huge run through of your principles around the firm, why you set this up, what the last decade involved with some great examples, and then what the next decade's going to have in store. So thank you very, very much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who joined us. If you want to find out more, visit gemcorpcapital.com.